Who is ready to see the most creative, original, and absolutely weirdest musical ever made? Well, that's what you're gonna get with Annette. What's going on, buddy? Welcome back to a brand new movie review. Today I'm going to be discussing Annette. This is the latest film that actually the story and music was created by the Sparks, who also just had a documentary earlier this year called The Spark Brothers, directed by Edgar Wright. And if you haven't seen that yet, you really should. And after watching this, I kind of sat there and been like, this would have been a great double feature in theaters to see the Spark Brothers the documentary, and then go straight into Annette. And you really much would understand their vibes, and I can't imagine if I didn't watch that documentary before, because I had no idea who the Sparks was, and I know, oh, blasphemy, he didn't know who the Sparks were. I didn't, and after watching that documentary, I was like, I really appreciate this band, they're freaking awesome, and how does no one really talk about them, at least in my age group? And then, of course, jumping over to Annette, I, again, kind of understood their flair, especially as the film had started. I didn't know that they were a part of this, and once I saw them, and kind of saw story by, music by, I'm like, all right, we're in for a weird experience. Because it definitely is a weird experience, but it's a mesmerizing one at that. That's what I can say. Annette is a mesmerizing musical, and one of the most mesmerizing films I've seen in quite a bit. Green Knight did mesmerize me into the spellbound world, but another film that hasn't done something like this with its visuals, and even in general, its storytelling. The last time I was like this was probably the Suspiria remake directed by Luca Guadagnino. Of course, you're probably wondering, what is Annette about? Well, Annette is about Henry, who's a stand-up comedian played by Kylo Ren himself, Adam Driver, who I absolutely love, with a fierce sense of humor, who falls in love with Anne, who is played by Marion Cotillard. A world-renowned opera singer, under the spotlight they form a passionate and glamorous couple. With the birth of their first child, a mysterious little girl with an exceptional destiny, and their lives are turned upside down forever. Now, this is a movie that, again, there's so much to this movie that has really much come out since its debut at Cannes Film Festival. I heard about this weird, crazy sex scene in it, and there really much is a weird, crazy sex scene in it, where they are literally singing while doing it, and I sat there going, okay, this is, like, different than I could have ever imagined, because when I heard about that, I'm like, okay, I guess I could see it, but once you see it, you're like, okay. And then I heard some weird things about the child, and when the child comes into the picture, you're like, well, okay then. That's a big kind of part of my reaction to this movie, was sitting there like going, all right, I'm along for this. This is just really weird. But it's truly enough, the style and tone of this movie is what makes it wholly original. And it's something that you definitely haven't seen this year, and you probably haven't seen ever. Truly enough, Leo Crax and Caroline Champier, who is the director and also Caroline being the cinematographer, they bring to life this film because, once again, the performances are fantastic. Driver just nails this role. Marion Cotillard kills this role. And both of them have wonderful chemistry with one another when they are on scene. Sparks are flying. But the thing that I could really much tell in here is their performances, and this just goes to how great of actors they are different than anything they've done before in different spaces. You know, we've seen Adam Driver again as Kylo Ren, Marriage Story, The Report, and Marion Cotillard we've seen in so many different elements, but they are truly enough dive into these roles to the point where I didn't even view them as the actors. And when they can do that, it's very camouflaging, and I have to really much give credit to where credit is due. I think that is also in part because of the director and as well as the cinematographer. Because again, this is a visual flair. Yes, the performances are something that holds the story together, but without the visual style of this movie, I don't think it would have worked as well. If you would have just shot this as a typical musical, the weirdness of it wouldn't have fit as well as it did. And in fact, just the opening lines pretty much set up the entire tone of the movie, and I thought it was just really interesting how they were able to really explore all of that. Can't express enough, this movie is freaking weird. And I'm trying to stay as vague as possible, but really much just talking about the things that other people have mentioned in their reviews and some of the things you might have seen in some of the trailers and clips. Honestly, that's just the start of it all. And there's so much more to dive into this movie. Honest to God, if you're just needing something that's completely different to go see in theaters, you should honestly check this out. It is coming into theaters this week, and it does go on streaming later in the month. But I just sat there going, once it ended, I sat there going, I kind of want to watch this again. Definitely had to sleep on this movie because after it ended, I had no idea what to think. I sat there just kind of baffled. And I had emailed the rep kind of my thoughts, and I was like, I liked it, but I don't know where I'm really at with this movie. I started thinking more and more about it, and I'm like, they really went after it. And while it is, again, weird and creative, I dig that a lot. This will not be everyone's cup of tea. Like, if you came to me and you're like, that was the stupidest thing I've ever watched, I'd understand what you said, because it is kind of stupid, and I can see how it comes off as stupid in that. And even when I will say, when it comes to cons, there's one thing to it, and musicals, I'm not the biggest fan of. So going into this, while I was excited because of the performances, who was involved, I wasn't that, like, hyped for it, because I didn't know what kind of musical this was going to be. Was the music going to be catchy? Was it not? And I gotta be honest, where it comes to be, that the Spark Brothers helped with the music, but I didn't find the musical moments in here to be as great as it was. It was more the sequences going on in the visual flair with the performances than it was the actual lyrics that I was so attached to, and I did expect a little bit more when it came down to those moments. But even then, Annette is a crazy unique experience that you should definitely check out if you're looking for something up that alley. That is honestly one of the weirdest creative and original films to come out this year, and probably ever. Driver and Cotillard performed to their highest levels in here, bringing to life every bit of the story, and I was just truly mesmerized watching this movie, as I had no idea where it would go next. You will, honest to God, not know where it's going next, because every twist, turn, sequence, and next part of the story is a different one than the last. It is something that I think is easy to follow as a story-wise, which thank God it is. But again, the music could have been a little bit better, especially when it came down to the lyrics, but still, I was mesmerized watching this, and I think a lot of you guys might feel the exact same way. It was hard to take my eyes off the screen. Whether you agree with that because you liked it, or you agree with that because it was that bad to you, I understand. Annette is something else, and with all that said, I'm going to give Annette a B+. Thank you once again, guys, for clicking on this. You guys are seriously all the best. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe, as well as head on over to Sam's Run Films on how to see films early. And of course, it's a big thank you to you and a big thank you to my Patreon supporters, because without you, I would not be able to do this. Of course, until next time, stay classy.